Genesis 3 through 11, Sin and Forgiveness, by Sawyer, Caitlin, Kaylee, and Michelle. The main recurring theme in the book of Genesis is sin and forgiveness. We associate God's ability to forgive human sins with the amount of mercy he has on man. Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, Noah's Ark, and the Tower of Babel are four of the stories that demonstrates God's forgiveness.
The first sin committed is by Adam and Eve in Genesis 3 when they ate the forbidden fruit of God. As a result of this, God assigns a series of punishments to both Adam and Eve. The second sin is committed by Cain when he kills his prized brother Abel in Genesis 4. As a result of this action, God forces Cain to wander the earth. The third sin committed is by man in Genesis 6 through 8. As a result of this action, God floods the earth and saves Noah. The fourth and final sin committed is when man built a tower as a result of similar speech in Genesis 11. As a result of this sin, God spreads people all over the world and messes with the languages.
In Genesis 3, we meet the first humans, Adam and Eve. God gives them one rule, which is not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. However, Eve is persuaded into picking and eating a fruit from the tree and also feeding it to Adam. From this sin, God sentences some punishments, including Adam having to work the land and making childbirth painful for Eve. Although these punishments were horrible, God could have killed off man or created a much worse punishment. His choice to keep the consequence at a reasonable magnitude shows that he truly cares for his creations and doesn't want to be the death of them.
In the story of Cain and Abel both have offerings to give to God, but God refuses Cain's offering, and therefore Cain kills Abel out of hatred. Cain then lies to God by saying, "What am I, my brother's keeper?" But God knows that Cain has murdered Abel, and God banishes him to walk the earth alone forever. However, he does not murder him.
Noah's Ark tells the story of a man who was given a task by God as a way to prove his loyalties and earn his right to live. As God watched man grow as a species, he began to recall their deceit and disrespect towards him. He became so disgusted with them as a collective group that he began to question why he had created man to begin with. He decided to destroy mankind altogether. However, he had felt mercy for Noah, as Noah had found grace in the eyes of the Lord. As the task of building the ship was a way for God to test Noah and his ability to prove that he could obey him and be capable of reestablishing the earth, God had mercy on Noah in the way that he was not killed along with his species, but given a chance to live.
The story of the Tower of Babel begins with a statement of how humankind has a common language. As a result of this similar speech, man began to forge bricks so as to build a tower of glory and a symbol of union. God observes this and declares that if people can create this as a result of speaking the same language, then nothing will be impossible for them to achieve. God sees this structure as a symbol of man possessing too much power. Therefore, God punishes this sin by scattering man across the earth and confusing their language. Despite man's punishment for failing to fear and respect God's glory, God still forgave them by letting them keep their free will.
In conclusion, these stories demonstrate God's ability to forgive the sins of his creations. Although some of the consequences he sentences are brutal, they are far from being deathly. God loves all that he creates as though they are his children.